Hello and welcome to the shop. A while back, and when I say a while back, I mean several years ago, I did a video collaboration with a gentleman named Zach Higgins. Now, many of you know Zach. He is an incredible caster. He does a live stream each week, and he casts sometimes some bizarre objects. I think he calls it Dunkin' Junk, and he's an incredible caster. He makes some gorgeous blanks, and I did a little collaboration where he made some strips, and I glued them up into a herringbone design with some, I believe that's either cherry or mahogany. I can't tell through the bag. There's a video on this out on my channel, and Zach has his half of the video on his channel. But you'll notice, see the shiny area? Somebody who shall remain nameless dropped this pin on a tile floor and shattered it. And the pieces busted into such small pieces, I was not able to fix it. And it doesn't look good. So I thought, you know what, I'll turn this into another pin. So a while back, I knocked this pin all apart using my pin disassembly set, which involves some rubber tipped pliers. You've seen me use those, and I'll show you a picture of them here in a minute, and some punches. And basically I knocked the pin apart, and I went to start producing a new pin, and I found a tube here that is the perfect length of the lower tube, the one I busted, but I could not find a 10mm tube that was 2 1/4 inches in length. I stopped into Woodcraft the other day, and look what I got. These are from cigar pins or letter openers. They are 10mm tubes, and they're close to 4 inches in length. So I bought a bag of these. They were really cheap. They were on sale. That says $3.19, but I paid less than that. It was under $3. I'm going to cut one of these down, and we are going to use one of my Chaos blanks, and we are going to remake this classic pin with a Chaos blank. These are the soft grip pliers that I use for pin disassembly. They're just like vice grips, but you can see they have rubber coating on them and these nice long sleeves that let you grip a pin tightly without damaging it. That way, if the blank is good, you could actually reuse the blank. And this is just a set of punches. So I go ahead and I select the proper size punch for the pin. Here's a pin that I want to take apart. You select the proper size punch that fits into the barrel of the pin. You grab the blank with your soft grip pliers, and you lightly tap on the blank with a hammer. I find it's best to cup the pin in your hand while doing this, and the reason why is I want to save this part. I want to reuse it. So if I just tap this with my hammer, I'm going to knock it across the shop. But if I cup it in my hand like this, I can tap on it, and you can see that the piece comes right out. It is completely undamaged, and it's ready to go into a new pin blank. And I would recommend anybody who is a pin turner to get yourself a set of these punches. They come in handy for all types of jobs. I even use the same set on my sanding jig over at my disc sander to be able to sand my blanks, because I can pick the perfect size tube for the blank, and I can run it right up against the sander and clean the edges and square them up. I also recommend getting a set of these soft touch pliers. There's going to come a time where you need to take a pin apart. The lower section of our pin uses a 3/8 inch tube, and this is the tube from a bolt action kit, and it's the perfect length, so we lucked out there. I happen to have a spare. This is the tube that I bought from Woodcraft. It's a 10mm tube, and I've gone ahead and measured it out, put a mark on there, and we're going to use our tube cutter to cut this blank. Now, you've all seen me do this before. There's nothing really fancy to it. These tube cutters are probably under 10 bucks. You can get them at the big box stores. Just put it in there, put the wheel right on the line, tighten it down, and spin it. Snug it and spin it. You're just going to continue to snug and spin. Each rotation, tighten it down just 1/8 of a turn or so. And eventually, it does take a moment. I don't like to get in a huge hurry, but eventually you're going to cut right through the tube. And we are just about there. Okay, we've done it. Let's get this opened up, lay that out of the way. Now you'll notice this piece is not needed. the piece that we just cut, it's kind of fluted because when you use the tube cutter, it flutes the end. I've gone back to my punches. This is the exact size of the tube. This will fit a 10mm tube. This is one size down, and I chose one size down because I want to be able to push it through the end of the tube. And I'm just going to, I could use the grip, the soft grip pliers to hold this, but I find when I do, sometimes if I squeeze too tight on the tube, it kind of doesn't allow the punch to go through. So I just hold it in my hand, pop it a few times, and you'll see the end of the punch has come through. And now let me get this one out of the way. I'll roll it on my table and tap it gently. Brass is very pliable. Now notice how easily it moves through the tube. Because the brass is pliable, I'm able to flatten it out a little bit. Then I come back with my 10mm tube. See how nicely it went in there? But we're going to go ahead and roll it and tap it a little bit. To make sure there is no flare on the end of that tube. Now, this tube is perfect. It's ready to be used. This is the blank we'll be using. Now, I am not going to show the cutting and the drilling and the gluing. I'm going to leave all that for off-camera work. When I come back and show you this, both halves will have this blank glued to them. They will be squared up and they'll be ready to go to the lathe at that point. And that's where we're going to pick back up. I just finished drilling out the blank. I'm preparing to glue things up, but I wanted to stop and let you guys know I made a mistake earlier. I said that the body of the pin was 3/8, and literally it says 10mm right on it. I wasn't paying attention, and it's also 10mm for the cap. I thought this was the classic pin kit. This is actually the classic Elite. The classic pin kit uses an 8mm drill bit, and the classic Elite uses 10mm. So that's the difference, and I just wanted to let you guys know that's what it is because I had misstated myself at the beginning of the video. I pulled the bushings that go to the classic Elite kit, and what we're going to do, these bushings are set up for a mandrel, but I'm going to go ahead and turn the blanks one at a time between centers. Should work just fine. We just can't turn them at the same time, which that's all right. I have the cap blank on the lathe first, and we're ready to start turning. I want to stop and take a quick look at my blank. Got a few flat spots on it, but plenty of material to take off next to the bushings, so those will disappear. Other than that, it's cutting really nice. Looks good. This blank looks absolutely fantastic. I've got a little bit of a hump right there in the oak, but you can see the grain in the oak. That oak is really soft, and I'm really nervous because I'm afraid it's going to chunk out on me. So I decided to stop. That little hump will sand away very quickly. I'm great at the bushings on this end, and I'm great at the bushings on this end. So really, we're just going to get some sandpaper. We're going to clean this up, and then we'll get the body of the pin on the lathe and get it prepped to turn. I'm leaving the speed up for this, and I'm just using some 200 grit. You can see how quickly it's taken that oak down. Just want to feel the blank. You'll feel any lumps or imperfections. Feels really nice. That looks good. Let me go back and forth just a little bit. I'm just lightly, not a lot of pressure. I didn't see any major rings, but, you know, we just want to make sure we don't have any. Looks really good. I don't have any super dark wood in this blank, so I did not put a coat of CA on here to act as sort of a sealer, but or sanding sealer, but I'm not seeing any issues. I like how it looks. I'm going to go ahead and graduate to the 300. We'll give it a quick little spin with the 300. Normally I would slow this down quite a bit before sanding, but just want to see what happens. Look at that. That's really nice. A little bit of back and forth. The grain is starting to close up on that oak a little bit, which is good. Because if the grain doesn't close up on the oak, then you're going to have to make sure that that fills in with the CA when you finish the pin so that you don't have any divots there. All right, let's do the 400 grit. I did not use 100 grit. I went 2, 3, 4 simply because the skew left such a nice surface on the blank. I didn't feel I needed it. Spinning fast like this, you will clog, you can look at my paper, you'll clog your paper a lot quicker than you will spinning slow because the paper doesn't have time to clear the dust before picking up more dust. That looks really nice. I'm going to go ahead and make a mental note that the maple is on the end of the pin and the walnut is toward the middle where the two pieces, this will be where the body intersects the cap when the pin is closed. So we're going to get this off the lathe. Let's get the body on and we'll turn it down. I've got the body blank chucked up. I'm ready to begin turning. My only concern is this piece of, actually that's mahogany. This piece of mahogany, see how far below the surface it is? And take a look at the bushing. I'm hoping there's enough there to where it just rounds over. It's making me a little bit nervous that it might be below the bushings. Yeah, so keep your fingers crossed for me. And actually, you know what? We're going to have a problem. Take a look at this. I don't know if you can see it or not. Right here, see that little crack right there? That is where the drill bit ran down the blank and actually busted out the side of the material. So we've got a little problem in that this blank is just not going to work for us. Gosh, I really hate that. I wish I would have caught that before I glued the tube in. I've got a second Chaos blank glued up on my tube and ready to turn. This one I was very careful. It has a little bit of an indentation there as well, just like the other one. However, I was very careful to offset. You can kind of see how I offset the hole and the tube to account for that. And that's something you have to take into consideration when you do these blanks because it is easy. It's very easy to to drill down the center like you normally would, and then basically you're off center for your piece. So we're going to go and get this turned. I want to stop for a second and just talk about something. As I'm cutting this blank, when I'm cutting from right to left, I was getting nice, smooth, it almost looked like a burnished finish. When I started cutting from left to right, take a look at that. It started chewing into the blank, so evidently my grain must be at a bit of an angle, and I'm catching it and pulling it up. So what we're going to do is I'm only going to cut left to right down at the end here to take this to the bushing, and then I'm going to cut right to left for everything else. I do have a little bit of separation there. It looks like it's full of glue, like there's a glue seam there. We'll see what that looks like as we get closer to the bushing. We've got almost 3/8 of an inch there. So, all right, just want to point that out because it really chewed it up. It lifted the grain. So make sure you watch for that and feel for that and compensate when you're turning. I'm very happy with that. I've got a gorgeous finish just with the tool, and once again we're going to start with 200 grit and sand this. I've got a great fit at both of my bushings. A little bit of a rise right there. I kind of expected that since I was turning left to right just to take it to the bushing, and then I was coming back and going across the blank. That little lump, that tool mark, will come out no problem with the sandpaper because that's walnut. It'll sand beautifully, and yeah, I'm excited to get this sanded down and see what it looks like. I'm going to go ahead and get this off of the turning bushings. We're going to get it put onto a mandrel. And then today I'm going to attempt to use a little Aussie oil. A good buddy of mine, Tommy Stridham, sent me this bottle of Aussie oil. And I've never used it before, so I'm going to take a few minutes, read the directions, and then we are going to attempt to finish this pin with Aussie oil. As always, I want to start by cleaning the blank and get as much of the dust off of it from sanding and turning as possible. Looks really good. I'm going to let it dry for a few minutes. I'm gonna get the lathe speed turned down and get prepped to start applying my finish. I shook the Aussie oil up real good to where it looks kind of creamy inside of the container. And they recommend using a rag. Now, I never bring a rag to my lathe, so what I did is I cut a larger piece of paper towel. I'm going to fold it in half and then fold it over. And I'm going to kind of, hopefully this will work as a rag because I don't want to bring a t-shirt or something like that to the lathe. Now, that may be too much. It talks about just putting a little bit on there, but I'm going to rotate it. I'm going to rotate the blank and make sure that I get good coverage. I've never used this before, so this is what it's said to do on the bottle, so hopefully I'm doing this right. Talks about rubbing it on the blank for up to like a minute to give it a chance to really start to work. I'm going to switch over to a dry part of the towel just to kind of buff a little bit. Yeah, it's getting a nice finish. One of the things it says on the container is apply as many coats as you need. So you don't want to put a lot on because it doesn't, I guess it doesn't cure quite like it should. So by putting a little bit on and then working it in and then putting a second and a third and a fourth coat, it actually is supposed to be better for the blanket. It's dry, it feels good. I'm going to go ahead and grab another paper towel. We're going to fold it the same way and we're going to repeat the process. Get a little bit on the second blank. And we'll just work it in. I'm not sure how many coats I'll end up using. I can see it's starting to pick up a shine. I like it. Actually, you can watch the light on there get clearer. So that's a good thing. Flip around here and do a little buffing. I don't know if I'm supposed to buff yet or not, but wow, I like the looks. It's really looking nice. What I'm going to do is shut the camera off, and I'm going to apply a couple of more coats. I'll come back and show it to you when I feel like it's finished and let you know how many coats I actually did apply. Well, I neglected to turn the camera on, but I ended up putting 4 coats on here. It looked really nice. It's a little dull right now because I just applied some Renaissance wax. You could see the light, the reflection of the light, and it was extremely clear across both blanks. So I'm sorry that I didn't get the camera on, but I just explained that, put the wax on, and then I went to turn the camera off and realized I never turned it on. But it's hazy now because the wax is drying. I'm going to put the buffing wheels on my lathe, and we're going to go ahead and buff both of these blanks. I just double checked to make sure the camera was on. I can't believe I did that. It happens every now and then. But I'm just going to run this blank over the buffing wheels and see what happens. Blank looks really good. It's got a really nice warm appearance to it. I'm happy with it. It's not quite as shiny as CA. Smooth as glass. Really looks nice. We're going to take this over to the bench and get it pressed into the pin kit. I was laying out all my parts in preparation of assembling the pin, and I noticed that I should have 2 of these and I'm missing one. And it hit me. I remember why I took the pin apart when I did. I needed this piece because I crushed the threads while assembling another Classic Elite. So what I'm going to do is keep your fingers crossed. I have this bag of pins that I've turned over the years, and these are pins that I plan to take apart. And that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go through and search this bag of pins looking for any pin that might have a 10 millimeter grommet like that I can use to complete this pin. So keep your fingers crossed, and I'll be back shortly to let you know if I had any success. Guess what? I got extremely lucky. Not only did I find another Classic Elite in that bag of misfit pins, but it is gunmetal and gold, the exact color of this one. And this one happens to be a fountain pen. So I have a choice. This nib just comes out. They thread right out, and you can thread the nib in. And I have the choice to make this a fountain pen if I want. But the other thing is, this one, it's really bad at the end here, but check this out. I don't know if it's been setting forever or what, but all I had to do was give it a pull with my hand. I did not have to use a tool, and there is the exact piece that I need. So we'll put this one away for a future use on another project, and I'll go ahead and finish laying my parts out, and we'll come back in a minute and press this blank into the kit. It's been a while since I have assembled one of these Classic Elites, and you'll remember earlier in the video I mentioned that this kit was without one of these little adapters because I crushed the threads. Well, I've come up with something here. You guys have all seen me use a bushing when I press a pin together to protect the end of the blank. Well, today I've come up with something else. This is 27/64, and it has a little collar on it. If I use this blank, I should be able to press this threaded section into the pin blank by the collar, not by the threads. And what that should do is that should allow me to protect those threads and have a nice, easy press. Take a look at that. That turned out really nice. Bring it up a little closer so you can see it. What we need to do now is press the threaded piece into the other end of the blank. And what I'm going to do to protect that is I'm going to go ahead and thread this piece in. Now, granted, this is the nib section down here, so we'll flip this, to this end, but it's good enough for pressing to protect ourselves. There we go. And that's just a scrap piece of Alumilite that I had laying around. Wood would work just as well. And we're just using that to protect our threads. Let me see. There we go. Absolutely perfect. And basically that was 27/64, happened to be the size of the threads. I just used a drill guide, one of those little things that has all the holes in it, and I popped it in until I found one that fit and compensated for the collar. I grabbed that bit and used it to drill a hole in a piece of scrap Alumilite, and that made a nice little tool for pressing pin kits and protecting the threads. Now we should have some play. I'll go ahead and put the spring in the cap. There we go. That's a perfect fit. Happy with that. All right. It's time to assemble the cap. I'm going to put a bushing in the end of the cap to protect it. Now this piece will go into here, and then your clip will slide onto that. The trim ring will go over the clip, and then the cap will go on. We need to protect our threads, so I'm going to start off by threading the cap onto this little piece. That'll protect the threads. Now we can press this together safely. But we want to be careful not to press it all the way in, and the reason why is I want to make sure that my clip and cap will fit perfectly. And this little trim ring has a cutout for the clip, so we make sure that little cutout goes over the clip. And then we'll put our cap back on. We'll snug it up as tight as we can get it, and there's still a gap there, but that's quite all right because, let me line that clip up. That's perfect. It's quite all right that we still have a little gap there because now we will finish the press, which will lock everything perfectly into place. And the threaded piece, whoops, that was just the bushing. The threaded piece is the perfect distance out of the blank it needs to be to put the cap on. Now we need to press this piece into our blank. Before we do, we're going to assemble our trim ring. Slide that on there, the gunmetal, then the gold, and then this piece. Okay, that looks really nice. And as we press this together, it will lock everything in. Well, that doesn't look right. This piece must have had, yep, I had this piece on upside down. This piece needs to go the other direction so that it actually slides over the black ring. Okay, now we'll try pressing again. There we go. It had a little lip on it, and you have to make sure that the lip is in there so that it seats over that black plastic filler piece. And with that, our pin is complete. Looks really nice. Very happy with the pin. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I had a great time reusing this pin kit. It was kind of neat. It had already been knocked apart, but then we had to go and get another one that needed to be knocked apart and swipe a part or two from. I need to add one of these little threaded pieces to my list and see if I can locate one as a replacement. The pin turned out beautiful. It's absolutely gorgeous. And with that other pin, I could easily swap a fountain pen nib onto here because it's just, you thread this nib section out and thread the fountain pen in and it becomes a fountain pen. I did have to shorten the ink refill. I think had I gone back and looked at the instructions for the length of the tube, what I did is, I remember now, it should have been 2 1/4 inches, and instead of measuring 2 1/4 and cutting my tube, I laid the other tube against it, which I don't know that tube was the proper length. It may have been about 1/4 inch too short, which may be why I had to adjust that. I'm not really upset about it. This is a pen that I will just use myself. I won't actually give this away or anything. It'll just be one that I add to my local collection, and I'll use it for a while. I really enjoyed using the Aussie oil. It did a nice job finishing the pen. It really looks attractive. I think Aussie oil, when I start making boxes, I think that's a great alternative for larger turnings or turnings that aren't going to be handled quite as much as a pen. I am concerned about the durability on the pen, but since this is in my collection, I'll know how durable it is because I'll be able to keep an eye on the pen as I use it and let you guys know if there was any issue at all with the durability of the Aussie oil. This was a lot of fun. I really appreciate you guys hanging out with me. I want you to know that you are always welcome in my shop. Come back and see me again real soon, and have a great evening.